What did Bill O'Reilly hear? What did Stephen A. Smith hear in Bannon's rationale, not just for another term, but for what they're doing and what they're against? They both join us now. Thank you very much, fellas. Bill, what was your take?
On the next term for Donald Trump, is that what you're asking me about?
Yeah, start there, but then, you know, what you took away from Bannon.
Okay, so that's a fantasy, and I don't really consider those kinds of things. It's not going to happen, never will happen. It's not worth my time or your time. Donald Trump will serve out his second term. Hopefully he'll be successful, and then J.D. Vance will run for president in 28 unless something happens. That's what's going to happen. I was at the White House yesterday, and...
Hold on. I want to hear about you being at the White House, but let Stephen jump in. This is what he's going to do to us in Westbury, Long Island, by the way.
Absolutely.
He's going to filibuster, Stephen. He's going to filibuster. See, but that's why I'm there. Okay, I'm like the scales of justice. Scales of justice. Go ahead, Stephen A. What did you think he meant?
Respectfully, Bill O'Reilly, it doesn't matter whether it's not going to happen. It matters that people on the right who preached for decades upon decades about following the Constitution suddenly come on national television and say there's nothing wrong with circumventing it. That's the issue. The 22nd Amendment says it, okay? It explicitly states in the Constitution that for the presidency, there will be a two-term limit. No person shall serve more than 2 terms. They know this. Now, these are the same people that spent decades upon decades telling us the Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution. We're going to follow the Constitution. But now that they've got a guy in office that they swear by, suddenly the rules don't apply. So I understand what you're saying when you're saying it's not going to happen. But to dismiss it and act like it means absolutely nothing, well, I got news for you. The election ain't until 2028, okay? And it's going to mean a hell of a lot to a hell of a lot of millions of American citizens that people on the right who are supporters of Trump have absolutely no problem echoing and articulating and parroting that kind of speech that Steve Bannon just threw out there. I'm very alarmed at it, and I don't even think it's going to happen myself. But the gall, the audacity for him to come on national television and say such a thing, I think is incredibly alarming.
Well, I'm going to say right now that I'm going to be in the NBA Finals playing point guard, and a lot of people are going to go, yeah, so O'Reilly will be shooting the threes in the final 7 games.
All right.
Look, Stephen, I want to calm you down, man. This is fringe stuff. It doesn't have popular support. I don't know who the people you are referring to. Steve Bannon would like Trump to be president until he's 112. And yeah, that's fine. It doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. So let's get on to what does mean something, Cuomo. Let's go.
Okay.
All right. So what means something?
Well, in my White House meeting yesterday with the president, 90 minutes, I sat next to Elon Musk, all right? And I walked into the Oval Office, and I feel incredibly privileged to get the invitation. And this is something that just, surreal to me. Second cabinet meeting this year that I attended. And Donald Trump said, hey, how are you? And I said, where are the Kennedy files? And 2 hours later, he announced they were going to be released. Haven't seen him yet. We'll have a take on him tomorrow on the No Spin News. So that was number one. And number two was Kate's
Wait a minute,
law.
Bill, do you think that he wasn't going to release them? Do you believe he wasn't going to release them until you demanded it?
All I know is I walked in, and he said, how you doing? I said, where are the Kennedy files? That's all I know. I'm just reporting. I don't know what he was thinking, don't know. Well, but I'm very happy they're out. And the Martin Luther King files are gonna be released as well. There is a problem with the Epstein files. I don't care about the Epstein files so much, but I want the other 2 files for history to be out.
What's the
problem?
Then
we talked about Kate's law. I'll get into that in another show. And then we talked about the Putin phone call that happened today. Problem is, in the federal documents regarding Jeffrey Epstein, it's who he had breakfast with, who he got a phone call from. And those names, if not redacted, could ruin those people's lives. And they had nothing to do with them other than some kind of casual contact. That's what's holding that up.
What do you think of that, Stephen A.?
Well, first of all, I'm very touched that you were so touched by being in the White House. It was such an honor and a privilege to be with Trump and Elon Musk. I mean, I just want to say that, I mean, if I'm just saying, okay, the White House, but that ain't what you said. You brought up Elon Musk, okay? And you brought up President Trump, okay? I'm looking at them and I'm saying to myself, listening to Steve Bannon right now, talking about violating the Constitution or amending it or what have you. I was alarmed by that. He also talked about, he's listening to Trump. And he's listening to some of the things that Trump's saying, bringing up the war in Ukraine and what have you. And we have a situation where you have a conversation with Putin, and he's talking about treating him. I don't want to go so far as to say he was alluding to him being an ally, but this is somebody that you have to negotiate with. Well, is Putin an enemy of the United States or is he not? Last time I checked, I believe I've heard Bill O'Reilly say that before. I believe I've heard many people say that before. I think we know that as a nation, who he is and what have you. But yet here we are. We want to break bread with him. We want to have a negotiation with him. We call for a 30-day ceasefire, and then he's bombing something literally hours after the conversation. But it wasn't the energy structures, or it wasn't that. Not at all. We're just going to bomb other places within Ukraine. That's entirely different than what we discussed and the specifics of what we talked with him about. There's a war going on. He's clearly the villain in a lot of people's eyes. He definitely wants to have the return of the old guard of the Soviet Union. In all likelihood, he wants to take over Europe. That's why you've got NATO in uproars, obviously trying to help Ukraine because they don't want this to happen. But yet this man has a meeting with our president, okay, with our president, all right? And what seems like minutes later, bombs something other than the energy structures, but we want to act like that's not a big deal. That's the Steve Bannon that I saw on the air right now, talking with Chris Cuomo a little while ago. If I'm wrong, I don't mind being corrected. But that's what I thought I was watching. Help me out, Chris, please.
Well,
no,
we're
let
going
me
to talk
help
about
him out.
what. Well, all right. We're going to go to break. Bill, you can take us to break with a tease of what. Give us a little tease of what you're about to say, but then let me get to break.
Number one, Stephen A. is being loquacious tonight. Okay? Word of the day, loquacious.
Big word.
Number two, when he shows up to the Westbury Music Fair on March 30th, all right, Sunday at 3 p.m. for the Three Americans show, I'm going to ask him questions about the Yalta Conference, all right, among Churchill and Roosevelt and Stalin. And Stephen A., I'm giving you a heads up. You better know, because this pertains exactly to what happened today on the phone with Putin.
All right, good. That's a good tease because I want to hear
real quick as a tease. Can I give a tease, Chris? Can I give a tease?
Of course you can. Of course you can. Everybody can tease.
I will be ready. I will be ready, Bill O'Reilly. Nobody's hiding.
That's right.
I will be there early and ready to roll. You can bet the house on that.
All right.
O'Reilly and Stephen A. Smith. Credit to mentor Steve Salerno, who said, hey, if Stephen A. Smith is being loquacious, Bill O'Reilly is being tendentious, which means biased in his portrayal of basically running the country, is what he was telling us before. Thank you for this JFK files, by the way. So you mentioned the Yalta Conference. I want to talk about them choosing Russia as an ally and basically discarding Ukraine, which is basically what I took away from Bannon, because Russia's too important. You mentioned Yalta. Why? Like, what that's going on right now has any resemblance to what happened with what ended World War II?
Because Franklin Roosevelt wanted to end World War II permanently and gave Stalin everything he wanted. And Churchill sat there appalled, but Churchill had no power, just like Zelensky. The parallels are unbelievable. So you're correct when you say that Ukraine is not really a factor in President Trump's thinking. He does not like Zelensky. He doesn't like him personally. He doesn't trust him. Doesn't like anything about him, okay? He doesn't really like Putin either, but he's not going to say that. In fact, when he asked me, the president, about Putin, I said, he's on the cover of my new book, Confronting Evil. He's right there with Hitler and the Ayatollah and Mao. And Trump didn't say anything about it. But he's smart enough, the president is, not to demean Vladimir Putin, because if he does that, there'll never be a ceasefire. There'll just be bloodshed on. And these dishonest left-wingers have no solution to the Ukraine war at all, none. All they want to do is bash Trump, put him in a weak position, and he's not weak, all right, so that he doesn't get credit for a ceasefire or a peace agreement. That's what MSNBC and CNN are doing. It's disgusting. And when you ask them, well, what would you do with Putin? They have no answer. None. Okay?
Right.
So let's just let
it's
hundreds of thousands of people
not a good
die
situation.
and do nothing.
Not a situation of Trump's making. Everybody wants it to end. He worked hard on that as a campaign promise. But Stephen A., what is your take on Bannon? Look, and I got to tell you, I owe him a thank you for saying a lot of the quiet things out loud.
Yes.
We choose Russia. They can help us with China. We don't want them to be with China. We choose Russia. We're going to be nice to Russia, even though they're being wrong to Ukraine, because big picture, we need them more. That's basically the play.
Well, here's my problem. First of all, I agree with you. I do appreciate Steve Bannon articulating his thoughts very, very clearly, not hiding from the issues. I applaud him for that because he's not hiding. He's right there in front of your face letting you know where he stands. He deserves credit for that. But to answer your question directly, let's understand something here. Is it not the Republicans and is it not the conservatives that are religiously known for saying peace through strength? Isn't that what they said? But now we're going to capitulate and acquiesce to Putin and Russia? I mean, listen, I am not the historian that Bill O'Reilly is. I will stand down any day of the week and tell America and the world I would learn far more from him than countering him with things that I could dispute with him. I get that. But damn it, Bill O'Reilly, that don't mean you're perfect with everything that you're saying. If you're looking at China, last time I checked, Russia does business with China. When North Korea was involved, if I remember correctly, reading correctly, where they sent some troops, to help Russia with Ukraine.
Right now.
Well, what do they do without the blessing of China?
What
do they do? There we go. So what do they do without the blessing of China? It would be little to nothing. So clearly, if you have a situation where Russia is collaborating with China and they're the sworn enemy, and now we're saying China is the enemy. Oh, excuse me, we're gonna coalesce or vibe with the enemy in an effort to ultimately take down China. Why would Russia do that when their primary objective is to take us down, to reclaim Europe, and China is willing to help them do that? What are the chances that Donald Trump is going to pull off getting Putin and Russia to vibe with us at the expense of somebody they've considered a friend who, by the way, is not a democracy? It's communist in China. It's communist in Russia. What are we? A democracy, right? Who you think they're going to side with? That's how I look at it. I mean, far be it for me to just connect dots and say 1 + 1 = 2. But that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing.
You got a pen there and a pad there, Stephen A.?
Oh,
I just got my phone.
So
I don't have
one,
a pen or pad on me, Bill.
All right, you put it into your little phone, and I'll speak a little slower.
Oh, listen to this
China
guy.
can't help
Will you
Russia.
just make a point? Make a point, you bully. Make a point.
Let him come. Let him come.
Did I hurt your feelings? Did I hurt
You're
your
a
feelings,
bully.
you guys?
Not at all.
You are a bully.
Not me.
I'm going to smack you around and boy.
This is when you get two wimps and a macho man in the show, right here.
You are saying, but just make your
China
point.
can't
Get
help
your pen
Russia.
and paper. Go ahead.
You shut up and I will?
I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm sorry. I
can't
talk
help
every once in a
Russia.
while. It's my show.
China can't help Russia in the long run. America can, because the Russian economy is tottering. They've lost 1 million dead and wounded in this stupid, senseless war, and Putin wants out. And if he defies Trump, if he makes Trump look bad, Trump's going to freeze every Russian bank account in the world, and that'll break the oligarchs that support Putin. I shouldn't say that. I'm privy to it, but I have to, as a journalist, impart the information that I have. Trump can hurt Putin big time, but he doesn't want to broadcast it because that's not the way you negotiate. He wants to get a deal with Putin. I think he will get the deal. It will hurt Ukraine. Ukraine will lose 12% of its property, and it shouldn't. In a perfect world, it shouldn't. There is no other way to do this. If Putin violates the ceasefire, Trump will hurt him so badly, and Putin knows it, because Trump can do it economically. All right? There you go. I hope you got all that, Stephen A., on your little phone.
I got that.
You can take it home. And
I got that.
As they said at Fest,
I didn't need my.
As they said,
I didn't need my phone to comprehend that, Bill. All I was asking is that, do you trust that that's something that Trump would do? And do you trust that Putin would go against China? That's all I'm saying.
Putin, all I'm going to tell you is this. If Putin makes Trump look bad, There will be hell to pay. As I said in Fast Times at
Ramifications
Ridgewood
and
High,
repercussions.
live it, learn it, know it.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.